let's talk about what is a DIB, or digital instruction block. A digital instruction block is nothing more than a unit of instruction. And that unit, I don't mean as a large collection of skills or pieces. I mean one piece of instruction. If you're familiar with flipped learning, it's that one component or skill that you might put in a 3 or 5 minute video. If you're a traditional teacher in a classroom, it's going to be that primary goal that you have for that class in a particular activity. Not necessarily for the whole class, just for that activity. I want the students to know and be able to do X. Now, that is in general what I think of DIBs, and that's how I organize my classroom. Because digital instruction blocks are not different or a product, they're just a way of thinking about your curriculum and organizing your classroom. But in particular, making that organization digital. Now, I worked with a wonderful teacher. He was awesome, and I respect him to this day. And every time we got a new book, he got a new yellow legal pad. And he went through that book and he wrote all of his lesson plans in that yellow legal pad. And 7 years later or 8 years later or whatever it was, he would throw that legal pad away. And he would get a new one when we got a new book. In that legal pad, he had organized his thoughts and outlined all his thoughts. Now, that's not to say for 7 to 8 years he didn't change what he taught. But it was his guide. It was his overall direction or map for learning for that time frame. That's what I'm talking about here. This is your map and your guide. The advantage to this being digital in these instruction blocks is that you can add components, subtract components, or move the components around as you need, unlike that yellow notepad. Now, good teaching is something that if you're a good teacher now, DIBs can only enhance that. If you're a teacher that's struggling, DIBs can help you with organization. But what we actually put in the classroom, what activities we actually use, the creativity we use, that's still reliant on that professional educator. So this is not a magic bullet. It's just a way to put all of these things that we have together into one place. Why would we need to do that? Well, instead of having file folders or those yellow notepads of information, or just this one book where we start on page 1 and go as the publishers have told us to go, what this does is this allows us to take all of these components from all of these separate sources, particularly if you're a person that loves supplementals or loves to have artifacts or original sources, or you like multimedia. This allows us to bring all of these things into one piece and one place, and to organize it in a way that students can access it with one-stop shop, one easy click. And some teachers say, well, why would you need to digitize a perfectly good worksheet? There's a lot of reasons you're going to want that worksheet by hand. And there are a lot of times as a math teacher, I want them to do their work by hand because the connection of visual and kinesthetic is very important to the learning. But there's also times where students are not in class. There's also times where that student is not reaching the goals at the same speed as another student. Or better yet, if I have all of this material available digitally, why do any of the students have to be in the same spot at the same time in their learning? We can truly differentiate for learners. So why go digital? Because it combines all of these tools that we have. Because it means that we can differentiate for students and get them what they need when they need it. But also, it allows accessibility. We teach students that are digital natives. And although I grew up when the internet was just blooming, and others that I teach with didn't even think about the internet before their teaching career, we have students that have the internet in their pocket. They have the internet at their disposal wherever they go. Now, that doesn't mean that every student has access, but that's one of the best reasons I know of to make learning digitally accessible, because not every student is going to have access to the learning at the times we would like them to have access to it. But if they have access when they can get access, now they can still learn on their pace, at their speed, when we can provide accessibility to them or they can provide accessibility for themselves. In either case, we have all of those learning tools at their disposal. And that's the best reason I can come up with for having digital instruction blocks, is meeting students' needs, whether they be accessibility needs, whether they be organizational needs, whether they be differentiation needs. It's about meeting needs, because that's our job. So, let's talk about how to actually make some of these DIBs, because the why is that accessibility, that differentiation, and everything that allows us to meet student needs with all of these wonderful materials that we love, that we've come up with to meet the learning goals that we know they need to have as professional educators. So, why DIBs? Get organized, get started, and make it accessible.